Welcome to White Label American Podcast. This is a podcast that brings you bold, in-depth interviews with interesting people that are mostly immigrants taking down artificial walls one story at a time. This is a podcast that empowers immigrants to share their stories and listen to those of others. Thank you for joining us. Okay, welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. The journey of many immigrants includes the transformative experience of becoming a parent and embarking on a new chapter in their relationship. And that means becoming fathers for some. So, this is the Father's Day episode. Happy Father's Day to the dads listening, or to the dads, brand new dads, or dads about to, those who are about to be dads. I'm not going to say Happy Father's Day to the single moms out there. You know, you're still part of Happy Mother's Day. We made an episode for you, but if you have any complaints, buy my merch and set it on fire. I appreciate that too. Thank you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to the show notes and do that. I'm your host, Raphael Harry, and I'm here as always, and I'm glad that you joined us today. We're on a Father's Day episode, and I'm glad to have a few friends of the podcast with me in the studio. We have our in-house, I was about to use the intro for The Last of Us, but I don't think other people will get it, so I won't use that. But we have our mainstay on the podcast, Ashwin Goutham Gopi.
What's up?
How you doing today?
Doing great.
And founder of the Black Podcasters Association, Corey Gumbs.
Thank you for having me.
And first timer on the podcast, Nabeel Ebeid.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And we also have a good friend of the podcast behind the scenes, making us look extra beautiful with more videos and clips. Zoo Diallo, how you doing, brother? You can shout out from behind the scenes too.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's what's up. So let's not waste your time. Let's dive straight in. We have that, so we don't have to do any makeup or all that kind of stuff. We save that for the beautiful women. Let's do the patriarchal thing. Keep these dads on. Keep them on their toes. Hit them hard. So, welcome to the show. Glad you all joined us today. So you all are different journeys of your, at different points of being into fatherhood. And I appreciate you all willing to share and talk about that. And I have a few questions that come from friends of the podcast who are also podcasters. Well, one of them is a podcaster. So I will start with her question. So Beatrice, the host of In Betweenish podcast, she wants to know, how has your cultural upbringing influenced your view on fatherhood, whether that means choosing to have children or deciding to parent them? Well, who would like to go first?
All of us jump at once. I guess I'll start. So, I'm not an immigrant, so I'm born here in New York, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s. My father wasn't in my life like that, so I think for me, it was a different experience. It was a choice that I made that I was gonna break that cycle. I wasn't gonna be like him. So, which wasn't easy because it was a struggle. But I always knew, like, growing up without my father, and I mean I had positive male figures in my life, but not having my father on a daily basis. And he was around on the phone. He lived in Puerto Rico, but it was a lot of broken promises and stuff. So I always made sure that, for me, I wasn't going to do that to my son, to my children. So my oldest, who I raised from 2 years old to 14, he got the best part. He got that part of me versus my other two children because I didn't raise them with him. So, and they came like later in life. But culturally, I think from seeing like my friends and myself and just the things we went through without the male guidance, getting caught up in some street stuff and fights and doing all kind of reckless behavior from like 13 to 20. I think that played a big role. So when my son was around those ages, I was able to talk to him and be like, listen, man, I did this, I did that. You see the struggles I've had because of certain decisions I made in life. Don't repeat it. And I always used to tell him, like, listen, don't you ever come out your mouth and say that your father wasn't around because I raised you, So you don't have that excuse to fall back on. But just culturally, I think the beautiful part is, like, we typically hear the stereotype of, like, black fathers not being around, which is complete fallacy.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to see all my friends who were all in the same situation where either we didn't have a father and our fathers just decided not to be a part of our lives, or they just no longer around. When I look at, even today, like when I look at all of us, we all at some point in our lives made a decision that we were not going to be like our fathers. So it's like all my friends are in their kids' lives and they're productive, and I see how wonderful their kids are. So I'm just happy, like both my sons really didn't do the things that I went through. So that was it for me.
Cool. So who goes next?
I can go next.
All right.
Yeah. So in terms of of culture, right? I mean, in culture, you gain all these like aesthetic stuff, right? The external, like the way things are, way things look, and the way you have to act, and then you also inherit a lot of like values.
Yeah.
Right? Values are things that you learn from explicitly being told things, like, right, whether you're punished or rewarded for something, like you start learning, you get socialized into behavior. So that's one part of it. But on the third level, there are like deeply held assumptions. Those are the unspoken things, that shape you, things that you learn through observation, things that you tacitly you observe and then you adapt and you imitate and things like that. So I'm sure there is like a lot that I've inherited, in that way, from being raised by my father. And sometimes I do have to catch myself in not becoming, as you said, like too much like him.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like I'm quick to anger,
Yeah.
and then I think about like the cultural differences. Then I think about like I had to grow up in a very like in a stressful environment, right? Like India is like, growing up there, even though that it was in the middle class and we didn't have to face that kind of material threat, there is always that social pressure to like, or you need to behave this one particular path that is predestined for you.
Yeah.
And that is literally in your stars, and it is written in your name, and there is a chart which if we follow, then it will tell you exactly what to do on a day-to-day basis. Your life is predetermined. And then me being like very rebellious, and then like having to like struggle in order to kind of like be myself, versus with my son, I allow him to like to do self-discovery, like I don't know, I always tell him, I'm like, listen, I don't know what's right or wrong, let's do this and see what happens, and I think sometimes you just have to like invert those cultural values in order to like, I don't know, let him experience that without any of the stress. Like, why do we have to, like, even like with the education system and things like that, like why do we have to include stress as the part of, or whatever, even like rewards, and even rewards, I don't reward this may be controversial, I don't reward him that much, it's not like that. It's more like I let him find out like what is rewarding for him, and that's the reward, whatever he gets to do. And as long as he does it well, he and he's proud of like things. He builds like a little tower and then he does a little dance. No, but it's good because I would never dance. I would never, you see what I'm saying? I would never dance. I would build it and then I would be like, oh, okay, very good analysis. Move to the next one, I wouldn't like express joy like physically like that. Because why? Because you have to act a particular way, And so kind of like, I don't know, removing the boundaries. But I do give him like culture too. Like I took him to India. I took him to his ancestors' temple. It's not even mine. It's his ancestors' temple, like the original stone where they pulled it out of the river and put it there like 600 years ago and started praying to it. I took him there and let him see, and he has a great, almost eidetic memory. He will, I'm sure, remember all those things. But it's like, hey, it's there if you want it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask something real quick? Because you said something about culture, right?
Yeah.
And I had the responsibility of basically, with my children, creating a new culture because I didn't have that influence. My grandfather was the closest thing to that, and he passed away when I was 13. So it was like, going through those growing pains and figuring out what I want my sons, or my children to go through, what I don't want them to go through, what I want them to go through. So it's like, now I'm thinking about it. When you mentioned it, I was like, man, I had the responsibility of creating a whole new culture in my family for my children.
Yeah.
So talk about pressure.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, my dad wasn't around for a lot of my upbringing either. I last saw him at 14. Things were on and off before then, and then after that, I didn't. I saw him like 3 times again in his life before he passed away. So, and I felt that loss a lot, and I've known I wanted to be a father in that absence, in that loss. So when I was a kid, I would see fathers and sons together, and I wanted to experience that part of the relationship, or I wanted to experience that relationship from the other side if I didn't get the chance to experience it as a kid. So, but I'm realizing now that that meant I had a blank canvas. So I can pick and choose my influences. I can think about what I liked growing up, what I didn't like growing up, what I observed around me. And I also, I'm not an immigrant myself. I'm the child of 2 immigrants. And I feel like I have the luxury, the privilege of being able to impart the culture or whatever amalgam of cultures that I want. And I kind of can pick and choose what I think resonates. And one thing that I realized a few months ago is, so I speak to my son basically exclusively in Arabic, and he's he's bilingual. He speaks both pretty much equally. And I realized that he doesn't even know that Arabic is like something that isn't native to Brooklyn, right? Like he's just like, I live in Brooklyn. There's people that speak Spanish, there's people that speak Chinese, there's people that speak Korean, there's people that speak Arabic. And like, if he saw somebody like walking down the street who, I don't know, spoke Spanish and celebrated Diwali, and he'd just be like, oh yeah, cool. So, and that's like the otherness that I felt growing up as the child of immigrants, the like us versus them, the outsiderness that I felt, it's not a thing he has. But at the same time, he can, without the stigma, inherit the language and inherit cultural aspects. We stop by a grocery store, an Arabic grocery store on Atlantic, and I read to him that this is the Arabic grocery store in Arabic. It's written in Arabic. And he was like, oh, what's that mean? And I was like, well, if you go inside, Ammo, uncle, speaks to you in Arabic. Because like the concept that there's foods that come from somewhere else that is associated with this language, that would not compute. So yeah, it's different upbringing from mine, but one that I feel like I've gotten to be able to dream up myself.
Awesome. So, still staying with relatively to that same question, but this next question will tie into that. What aspects of your cultural background do you intend to pass down to your children, and what traditions or beliefs do you hope they will outgrow or reject?
I'll take that since it's right on topic.
Yeah.
So it's it's funny because I am I'm progressive child of New York, and it's even little things like, he speaks perfect Arabic. When we were growing up, everybody was Ammo or Khali, uncle or aunt. We are in a gender fluid, non binary world, and he does not speak a gender fluid, non binary language. And, you kind of have to figure out how to teach concepts like, gender maybe in a more open, accepting way. There are things about my upbringing that I think were kind of stereotypically immigrant. There was corporal punishment. There was particularly from my dad. Ashwin, to your point, I don't believe in punishing or rewarding. I think that I mean, I try not to, but I think that rewards should be intrinsic. People should want to do a thing for the thing's sake, and it's there's a lot that there's a lot that and it's not just cultural. I think it's just the time too. There have been a lot of people who've had the opportunity to study, think about how things like rewards work, and that's something that I've internalized. And so again, raising my kids, I have a 1-year-old daughter too. Raising my kids quite a bit differently from the way I was raised, but trying to stay true to the things that I think have made me who I am and are part of their cultural heritage that I don't want to throw away and that I want to adapt in a way that makes sense to me.
All right.
This is a good one. I mean, for me too, like, I have to, it's about picking and choosing. I tell him all the stories, like, I tell him all the stories, and like, I'm talking like, I'll mix like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, with like Middle Eastern, Native American, with whatever, with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all the different stories that I know.
Yeah, all the stories, man.
Right? And you just have to tell them stories. And so I do tell them, like, that part of the culture, I try to like pass it down,
Yeah.
I pass down like all the stories, the metaphor, there are a lot of metaphors and stuff like that. Including like, like for me, my influences, like a lot like Hindu, Catholic, Islam, Buddhism, those are the things that I know. So I try to tell him like a lot of like stories, and I always try to make him the protagonist of these stories. And it's always like it works out well,
That's
so in that
something
way,
I
like
might try that.
yeah, I can like pass down like a lot of in that kind of like cultural like richness. But I don't really like. It's also because I don't know very well that like all the superstitious part of it. Unless it's very convenient for me. I'm like, no. Now, according to the, I'll invent like the jinn, whenever I have to conjure one, I'll be like, okay, actually, now, according to the ritualistic time, it's time to sleep, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess in that way, because that's also what my dad used to do. He was not very like religious. I guess so. I never learned that part of it.
Okay.
So, but I guess it's about I would like him to know that there are different stories that are possible. Because strangely, if ask the question about like how do you teach how kids to be like gender fluid and stuff. A lot of like Native American mythology, African mythology, Hindu mythology, Greek mythology deals with that kind of like gender bending. He was a man and a woman,
Yeah.
a kind of like, and then he was
I didn't
he was
think
split
about
in
that.
half,
That's
and then
true.
one side of him was man, one side of him was a goddess, stuff like that. Those kind of concepts.
And there are a lot of like
Yeah.
non-white, non-European, non-binary traditions.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
third genders exist in a lot of
Yes.
cultures traditionally, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah, two-spirit people,
Yeah.
Native
Yeah.
American culture, and so on. So I think it's about drawing just like to show that there is like so many different possibilities. It's not just Marvel.
Hey.
I'm just
Slow your roll.
okay, all right, sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Those are the only stories that count.
well, that's because you haven't heard the one about Jesus the Buddha and Splinter walking into a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody writing right now. Like, oh,
Chat
there you
GPT.
go. There you go. I knew it. But yeah, if you get mad, there's my merch stuff. Just
You should just make that a shirt.
buy the biggest t-shirts, and if you want socks too, we got socks. Set them on fire. And if you want to shoot it too. Yeah.
I think for me it's hard, being black and Puerto Rican, and not really being associated with my Puerto Rican side. There was always that, always that. I remember growing up, was my identity would always go back and forth, right? It'd be like, oh, I'm Puerto Rican. And as I got older, I got more and I started learning about history. I started being more comfortable with like, nah, we're all really one people, right? Like they say, it just depends on where you got stopped on the boat. The boat stopped first, right?
Yeah.
But my kids are also. So I have, I was having a good time. So I have 3 different baby mamas, and like my oldest, his mother is half American black and half Nigerian. So helping him to understand that part of his history. My youngest son, he's half Jamaican, and then my daughter, she's half Panamanian. So it's like it gets really complicated. And I think for me, the culture part is, I can only go by me being a black man in America. It's like I impart that part on them, but I come from a family of teachers. So I think the biggest cultural thing that happened for me was I was the black sheep. I was the one that revolted. I was the rebellious one. I didn't want to go to school. My sisters did everything they were supposed to do. And I always say I'm the smartest one. But just imparting that part about I still learn the lessons of importance of education. So all my kids, I impart that in my way. And like you, I let them just figure out their way with it. And because that's how I had to learn. But just now is one of my things that I think about consistently, like especially since my father passed away and I had to go bury him in Puerto Rico. That was the first time I connected with family members that saw me when I was an infant or saw me when I was a little kid. I don't remember some of them.
Yeah.
My uncle, my father's brother, I didn't see him since I was like 11. So it was like that. It was like, and then being there for the 2 weeks I was there, and just like, wow, this is like I've seen him maybe 3-4 times in my adult life, and a lot of times I just want to take a vacation. I was like, oh, let's go to Puerto Rico, right? I got a place to stay. So it was like the concern now is like, how do I impart that side of their culture, just so they know who My kids are very comfortable who they are, but still, it's still a part of your history.
Yeah.
Right, my family on the Gumbs side in Puerto Rico did a lot of things in the area. So it's like, you should know that part of your history. So I'm just right now just struggling with trying to figure out how do I reconnect all of them to this thing that I'm learning myself. So, so it's like you got the Caribbean culture, you got the American culture, and then you have the Latino culture, and it's like it's just trying to figure out how to manage that, and they figure it out for themselves too. So I don't put too much pressure. I just like to remind them, hey, this is part of your roots. You should, here's a book or here's something you should read and learn about it. So, but again, like earlier, like we had an opportunity to create our own clean slate and say, okay, this is what we're going to impart in our children from now on. And I look at it as a positive thing. Like we got a chance to break a cycle that we could have chosen to actively continue. Yeah. If we stayed in that angry place or that place that a lot of people stay in. The Luke Skywalker, the Anakin Skywalker phase, right?
Yep.
Like, we could screw up the whole universe just because we got daddy and mommy issues, So,
yeah.
I agree on that.
I could pick some examples from the Old Testament for that.
Yeah, right.
I feel that though. So my dad was Egyptian. My mom is Syrian. The Arabic that my son speaks is Syrian Arabic, and he's eligible for Egyptian citizenship. I'm a dual citizen, and I've been meaning to work on his paperwork for that, but he actually doesn't even understand what his link to Egypt would be. He doesn't know that he has, in theory, or would have had a grandfather. Like his
Right.
whole link to the place where he's eligible for citizenship, where I'm gonna get his paperwork done, is a story I'm gonna have to tell him one day, right? So,
Yeah, for me, the guilt is my sisters are fluent in Spanish and I'm not.
Yeah.
That's because they went to class. I was too busy cutting up. But
I'm illiterate in my own mother
Yeah.
tongue.
so I would love for
me-
my
me
kids to
too,
get that
so-
part because
You're not alone.
Yeah.
But for the listeners and out there, Corey is still Corey mentioned not being from a family of teachers and he's the black sheep. He still teaches though. He teaches.
I'm my own
kids.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, before he came to the studio today, he was teaching kids. On some
It's funny how everything just comes full circle.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll never teach kids.
He never teach kids. He was teaching some kids.
Yeah, I'm teaching
and-
kids how
and
to
then he also
code.
teaches a lot of podcasters, through the Black Podcasters Association. So he's teaching people out there. It's funny how it works.
Yeah, right.
He might not be in a physical classroom all the time, but he's in a digital classroom a lot. So yeah, life comes in different cycles. It's like me too. I come from a family of teachers, and I'm like, I don't consider myself a teacher,
But having a kid all of a sudden you become a teacher.
That's
right. All of a sudden you start realizing all these things your parents gave you. Like I'm like, oh man, I'm my grandmother. Like I'm doing the same thing my grandmother does. I hear my kids talking. I'm yelling across the room like that's not how you're correcting how they say a word or something. It's
But yeah, that's beautiful. You said something, Nabeel, about when you were talking about the dual citizenship. I don't know, something crossed my mind about. I think I got the question. So when you take your kid for late for his paperwork with the Egyptian embassy, that won't be a problem that his Arabic is Syrian, right?
no, and I mean it's strictly your dad's Egyptian, you're Egyptian.
Okay.
That's it. My you can marry into if a woman can marry a man into an Egyptian man into Egyptian citizenship, but even then I think there's a residency requirement. But aside from that, it's just patrilineal.
Okay, yeah. So it's similar to Nigeria, where a woman can marry into citizenship, but the other way around, it doesn't work. Yeah. There's still some fight about that. So yeah. So
It's funny. In India, it can be either,
but
you cannot be dual citizenship.
okay, it can be dual.
No, you do get like the special thing called overseas citizen of India, but it's a meaningless document. It's just, it's just that you don't need a visa. Like you don't need to pay like $25 every time you need to go. That's about it. You still have to wait in the foreigners line.
Okay.
It's just ceremonial.
Yeah.
But I got this. Get over there.
Yeah.
Go with them.
They don't let
You know
you
one.
stand in the quick
They
line.
will be more mean to you. Like,
Yeah.
one of us.
It's stupid. It's like wherever in the world I go, I have to stand in the stupid line, in the long line.
Ah, man.
It's funny. My uncle was telling me a couple of years ago. He was telling us because actually my name's supposed to be Corey Gumbs Solano, but my father, being the rebel he was, he dropped the Solano part. But my uncle was telling me that we should start. He was saying he's looking into it, but we should start looking into Spanish citizenship because he was able to trace our family name all the way back to Spain. To a royal house in Spain. So I was like, well, I might have to take advantage of that one
Royal
too.
House.
Yeah, supposedly. I
that-
told him he's got to send me the information. I got to do my own research.
That
but-
come with gold.
Yeah.
Something like, man.
Brother Corey,
I could change my name Solano too. Like,
Lord Corey.
claim me as your cousin. I mean, Spain might owe me some gold too.
You have to bend the knee, Raphael. Afros and audio. We're gonna do my coronation.
Oh boy, there we go. Oh man, oh Lord, I'm gonna have to call the Spanish consulate. Like, yeah, there's a guy coming.
Come get him, yo. Come get him. Take him back.
So, as a dad, what do you consider your biggest challenges to be? What has been your biggest challenges so far?
Oh, for me, so my son is gonna be 24 years old. My oldest. As a dad, especially with him, because we just like the history that I have, like with him in particular, with him coming to live with me at 2 years old and me raising him, and the stuff me and his mother went through as he was growing up. I think originally for me the hardest part was dealing with that. Like, I have a 2-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, and finding and not being like, I like always tell him, because we talked about it. One, I apologized to him because I was like, listen, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have anybody teach me. So I really didn't have a blueprint on how to do this. So like, I made a lot of mistakes. So I think for me, the hardest part sometimes is, and I don't know how old your children are, but it's going to happen. Like, it's going to be, when they hit 21, you can be like, he's a grown man. He's not a child anymore. And, my mom, I'm going to be 46. My mom still be acting. She still introduce me. This is my baby, and I'm just like, stop, right? And parents going to be a parent, but I think the hardest thing for me was when my son, turned 21. Was like, okay, he's his own person. He's a grown man, and we just had a fight over something. But I'm like, you know what? It's your life. You gotta live your life how you want to live your life. I told him, I'm still gonna be your father, and I'm still gonna be concerned, and I want to, make sure you do the right thing. But letting go and being like, you're a grown man now. You got to go in the world and do what you got to do, which is best for you, not what I think or your mom thinks, but what is best for you. And it's hard, So, but I guess the other two that are coming up behind him will get the easier part, because I've been through it, so I know kind of the behavior. I kind of know how the conversation's going to go if I'm like, hey, so. But I think for me, that was the hardest part, was like just even as kids, recognizing that each one of them you try to put yourself, like my oldest is probably more like me with music and TV and my influence, because he was always around me. So, I had him still watching Star Wars at like 7, right? And, he's into all of that stuff. But I think the hardest part also is like recognizing, if you have multiple children, that they're all they're all individuals. And no matter how much you want to make your mistakes through them or repair the mistakes you did and make sure that they come on the right path, you still have to respect the fact that they're individuals. They have personalities. They have different perspectives. They have different experiences. So my son knows what it's like to have a father in his life. I don't. So he has a whole different perspective and experience that I can't relate to, and I just have to respect his feelings on that.
Yeah.
So I think that, and it's hard to be self-aware when you're emotionally involved and you're deep, you're knee deep. I had to check myself at his graduation. All his teachers are like, oh, this is your mom, and I'm sitting here like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, was I not a part of? I said, if I didn't even find a school, you wouldn't even be here. Like, like what do I get my due? And it's just like, you know what, this is his time. I'll address you. Me and you would go have a beer and we'll address that. But this is your time now. Like, enjoy it. I'm proud of you. So you got to learn how to remove yourself from and just recognize that this is a person. This is an individual. They have personalities. Sometimes they're characters. But you got to just, remove yourself and let them, trust that you gave them enough positive influence that they're going to make the right decision. And for me, it was when I was talking to my son. He got his first job, and he was like, yeah, I got X amount of dollars saved up. I'm investing, and I did this and did that. And I was like, oh, so you were listening. Because I didn't have anybody teaching me that stuff. So when he saw me working on my businesses, and I always impart stuff on him, and he acting like he wasn't paying attention, I was like, so you were. So it was like, that's when I learned to just take a step back and be like, okay, he's fine. He's not out here. He's not popping out babies. I called him on his 23rd birthday. I said, listen, when he turned 22, I said, yo, when I was 22, you were on the way. You're one step better than where I'm at. So continue on this path. I was like telling him, like, you weren't out here in the streets. You weren't out here running around acting a fool. You wasn't doing your schoolwork, but you wasn't out here getting trouble. You was drawing, right? You was playing your video games with your friends and stuff. So. And I've had to tell his mom, like, ease up. Like, he's fine. He doesn't have a criminal record. He's not out here being reckless. He's being responsible. He has a job. He's getting his money. He's going to school. Leave him alone. So and it's hard.
Yeah. But that's why you're here, because, 'cause most of us we're still far behind you on the journey. So-
Yeah, that's it. We've got young kid problems.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah. So, what has been your biggest challenges so far? You wanna go?
There's the tactical stuff like sleep and my kids just have so much energy. They're 1 and 4 and
Fun.
yeah, it's a
Enjoy
lot of
it.
fun. And my day starts at 6:30 if I'm lucky, 5 o'clock if I'm not. And then my oldest doesn't go down till, on a good day, 9 o'clock. And if he's some nights he just want to party. So
yeah.
there's just such little time when there isn't that intensity in my life.
Yeah.
But I'll say the biggest challenge for me is probably just looking ahead, knowing that it's not going to be this idyllic. Like, this is hard, but also, I mean, I spent so much time with my son during the pandemic. That's why he's so fluent in Arabic. We took him out of daycare, and I was with him like
Yeah.
all the time.
Uh-huh.
And he was on my
Yeah.
work calls,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if it's gonna be like that with my daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm about to take my first work trip in a long time without him, without the family, in 2 weeks, and I'm just dreading it. And I'm gonna be gone for 3 days, but we've just gotten so close that
Yeah.
that's just
Oh.
So I know that that's not normal. That's not like, you don't, people have things and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
leave and they,
Yeah,
and I think the process of raising kids is just like the gradual loss of intimacy. Like, you start and like they're on you all the time and they're needy and like you're everything to them, and then they just drift away gradually and like at some point they start hating you, and they figure it out in therapy, and then y'all be okay in the end, right? But like, that's kind of this. But knowing that that's just gonna happen, it's just that's why I'm glad you went first, because that's what we got to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you the experience between boys and a girl is completely different. So don't worry too much about your daughter. Be honest with you. They have their, like, I don't know, like when I had my daughter, it was a weird experience because she was like she was like that for me. She was like always with me. She was like my sidekick. So, whenever you saw me, she was there with me. But our relationship, like, even though she lives in Virginia with her mom, we still have a relationship, like, and it's weird because she doesn't live with me anymore. So, we still have like a bond. So like, it's different. It's just interesting with the boys and the girls. So I'm not concerned for her like I am with my sons. Like, yo, what are you getting yourself into over there? She's just doing what she's supposed to be doing, and she's doing it well, and she has her personality. And I'm just like, okay, I just gotta make sure, when the boys start coming into the picture, we just have a clear understanding of like, where your life is going and what mistakes you don't need to make, right? So, but yeah, enjoy it, man, because you're right. They start hitting like 10, 12 years old. You're like, what's
It
up?
gets
You want to go hang
complicated,
out with
right?
him? And it's like, but yeah, one of the hardest things for me was my son was with me all the time, and then when his mom, it's a whole story with that, but when his mom started getting him on the weekends, I would take him to judo. She would pick him up from judo. There was that time period where like I would drop him off, I would leave, and then I'd be like, I'd sit in the car for like 5 minutes and be like, so what do I do with myself? Right? And I think that helped me because then I started finding things like, I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. Stuff I didn't get a chance to do while he was living with me, on the freedom to do it. But it's always that like that moment where you're like, what do I like? I don't know what to do with myself. Because it's like your part of you is missing or part of you is gone. And you're like, spent so much time and I'm so involved. So enjoy it because it's going to happen. Just hopefully the teenage angst part doesn't go like, it doesn't go like spike all the way up, so, but you'll be fine.
I hope so.
My kid's young too. He's
Yeah.
3.5. And I get you, like about the intensity. Sometimes it's like it's so intense, And he's very social, and he wants to be around people. So I get it. And sometimes I'm like, boy, I need a break. I just need a little break. I want to be here. You can jump on me if you want, but I'm going to be here. I'm not getting up, okay? You can jump on me on right here, okay? So I'm like, okay, fine. But then I'm like, at the same time, I kind of get it. And I wish that my greatest challenge is that I don't have anyone else to give him. It's just me or his mother, and it's the two of us all the time. Like he doesn't have a cousin, he doesn't have an aunt or a grandma, and everyone is a very expensive plane ride away. Everyone is very far away, and everyone is a visa away also, by the way, for him. Right. And so it's like moments of like short bursts of intense like togetherness, and then like long times of it's just isolation for us, away from our family, and that's what he misses. Sometimes I take him to like, I wish we could have come to your party too, he would have liked it. But we took him to like another party like last week, to a graduation party, and it was like a lot of Indian people there, and he was just like, he thought like, oh, these must be my my cousins, and he was like so happy.
Hey, they have to be cousins, man. That works.
And he had such a good time, But I was like, oh, that's what he needs, I just need to like. And then I have my weird theory of how humanity will solve this in the future. Should I? Okay. I think like due to economic and social conditions, we will move into like trinary marriages. Because of real estate is so expensive. It's cheaper to get a 2-bedroom. It will move into these kind of trinary arrangements, and it will be like we will create like a new kind of like a marriage unit, composed of like 3 individuals, and for child rearing, and for community. They say it takes a village.
Right.
It really does take a village.
You already got a village right there.
So I'm saying, I'm just saying I'm not okay. By the way, I never broached this subject to my wife. Okay.
The views of Ashwin are not the views of what.
Are not even the views of Ashwin. They're not the views of Ashwin.
I just had to make that
It's just
clear.
an observation.
I am predicting
and it's,
that due to economic conditions in the future.
Not right now. Future. But Mayor Adams, in case you're listening, and you want to take the idea, come talk to me first.
Yes, legalize.
In case you need a czar to implement this idea, because I know you love hiring czars. 200K, yeah, I'm fine with that. So, another topic, staying with concerns. We are in this age of culture wars being waged by some people. How concerned are you with the culture wars being waged on the political front and in the media? Do you have any plans for addressing that with the kids? I had an interview. I recorded a session earlier on, and 2 immigrant parents, and they were honest about their kids who they brought here to America, New York City, much younger, being so aware of the politics. The oldest is 17 and the youngest is about 13, I believe. Being so aware of politics, being into politics, and they grew up in Singapore, the parents, and their childhood wasn't anything like that. They weren't into the politics. Their childhood was not anything like that. So nowadays it's different for the children, and it's like they have to. This culture wars that's in the news, it's everywhere. Are you concerned about that? And do you have any plans on addressing it? Should it come around your kids. So let's start with the younger ones, and then we'll go to Corey.
Yeah, we're actively in the process of applying for permanent residency in Canada. So there's that.
Okay.
Where we've been terrified of a number of things. This country's obsession with guns terrifies me. The idea of, my child, he was 3 doing lockdown drills, like lockdown drills at 3. That's not normal, and so that terrifies me. His mom is Black American. Their mom is, and particularly with him, I don't know at what point he's gonna start being seen as a threat. I do remember very vividly when Flatbush looked like it was occupied by the NYPD, and that was some apocalyptic shit. And so I think when we talk about culture wars, it trivializes the actual real violence that it kind of feels like a euphemism, right? And I don't know, God forbid they have to face issues of sexuality, gender identity that in a hostile country toward that. So yeah, we've out of concern for safety, we have been thinking about, more than thinking about, we've been actively applying for permanent residency in Canada, and we, if all goes well, are going to spend this next school year here, and then following school year we'll be in Toronto.
Okay. But in Toronto, let's say you moved there, and because I know of some of the politics over there, but I know it's not as full on crazy like here. So if some of the school craziness, someone starts moving, because you have the political parties there also have some of it's seeping over there too. So like some say, oh, there's too much. They're trying to paint their history. Like we don't like the way people are trying to force our history to look like we're all bad guys. We don't want that. We want some books banned in the schools and all that starting to seep into Toronto, because it's literally beginning to happen in different parts of the world. If there's one thing happening in America, you start seeing it happening around the world.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for dealing with that?
We'll figure it out. I mean, there's it's scary everywhere, and I don't want to act brand new about this. I know that there've always been issues, and my parents, both immigrants, they left their countries for a reason, and I think if we'd be leaving from a much more privileged place than the one my parents left. So I think it's a privilege and a luxury to be able to think about where we want to live and have the options we have. Having these options, I think we're just gonna have to see what Toronto's like. We don't have to renounce our citizenship, and we can always come back if we feel like this is the place to be. But I think right now, having that option and having, from what I can tell, sort of normal range of horrible to deal with, and just along, I look at the stats. Incarceration rates are much better. Life expectancies are higher. Gun violence is lower. I mean, a lot of the things that aren't directly related necessarily to what we're calling culture wars, but really reflect a politics that the same politics that we're referring to when we're talking about these culture wars.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these things are just, normal terrible and not terrifyingly terrible as far as I can tell.
All right.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. The gun stuff is very like scary for me, and people are like, "Oh, but you live in Brooklyn, New York. You should be safe." But I don't feel safe. And that's why I'm saying, we should. I get it. We should build a wall. We should keep these Long Islanders out of New York City. Keep the Long Islanders out. They're insane.
that's
Staten Island, I'm saying,
Ban
destroy
Staten
the
Island Ferry.
bridge.
Ban Staten Island
the
ferry
bridge.
service
Bomb
until,
the bridge. I will myself put like
until we
C4
figure out what's
and
going on.
Bring down the Verrazano Bridge myself.
Before you guys get mad, Staten
and
Island.
blockade the Long Island
I still love you
Expressway.
guys. Buy the match first before you
Just
get
until
mad.
we figure out what's going
Do
on.
not let this. Yeah, they're not sending their best. Okay, they're
not.
sending their crazed, trained killers into our subways.
Oh boy.
Okay, to attack and murder people. They're insane. They're traveling with guns. They come with pickup trucks. They come with rifles and like and revolver. Like handguns. They're insane. They come and then they're coming like pre-mad. They're
Oh, yeah.
pre-mad. They're mad even before
Before they leave the house.
they're angry before they get here. They watch all this internet content and they get really angry and then they come here. And I'm like, dude, no, go chill out.
Stay
don't
in
come
your
here.
borough and
Yeah,
get mad there. That's
stay in
fine.
Long Island. Do not come here. If you think it's dangerous, why is your instinct like, oh, I need to be, Captain America. I gotta load up the truck with my guns and then go to the place, which I believe is unsafe. It's kind of like, it's almost like pornographic for them, exposing themselves outward like this in public with their guns. I'm saying it's really scary for me. Thinking of the Staten Islanders and Long Islanders coming to Brooklyn with their assumptions and weapons, So I kind of get you. It's very scary. I think we do need to.
And stereotypes
them out.
aside, as
Keep
true as
them.
they might sometimes be, we're also when we talk about Brooklyn being safe, which the city is much safer than it once was.
Yes.
But that's also before we've seen the effects of NYSERPA versus Bruin, the Supreme Court law, and the idea, and I think this gets at the heart of just our ability to govern ourselves is under attack, and I think that we live with this under this illusion that if the roof is cratering next, in the room next door, that it's not going to affect our room when we're all under the same roof here.
I have a different perspective of the culture war. It's gonna come because I grew up during the crack era. So when I hear about the schools and stuff, I'm like, look, man. I mean, I've had friends. We had guns on us in school, so but we didn't go there with the intention of it. But it was whatever was going on after school. So like the one thing that was amazing to me, and I saw it during the pandemic with the whole Trump presidency, and I saw my sons with my oldest son and my youngest son with the schools that they go to, and I guess I could be naive. I have more of a positive view of it, of the culture war, because I've realized that this is not like I don't have a political voice anymore. I'm going to be 46 years old. This is my son's time. This is my children's time to take a stand for their future. I love history. So part of the problem we see with all of this stuff is the scorched earth that comes from their European roots. That's what I'm going to say. Like, that's if I can't have it, nobody can. We just constantly see it through all the history books. That's what they did. So we just need to accept that part. And whenever there's a challenge to the power structure, this is not the place for this conversation. But, I look at it like, okay, the one thing I saw during the pandemic was, and I think, what was her name, Carrie Ann Conway, when her daughter was doing it,
Oh, yeah.
is,
yeah. Oh, no.
and it's always been the biggest fear of white America when segregation happened, which was your kids are now going to be influenced by the kids who you hate, the children who you hate. So these kids are going to school with Latino children. They're going to school with African Americans. They're going to school with Asian. They're meeting these kids that they're now friends. These are my friends. It has nothing to do with race. This is my friend. And I'm not going to let you talk about my friend like that. You know what I'm saying? So I see these kids, the younger generation, and unfortunately, because like even with the school shootings and stuff, and seeing the organizations that came out of that by the people, the youth, this is their time. And I used to say that my family is also very community involved with politics. We used to have politicians at my house. My grandparents, we did a lot of stuff in Queens. And I remember I used to always be like, well, you guys are talking bad about the kids, but what are you giving us? So I always had that viewpoint, like you had your time, now it's our time. And it's just something, the age-old story between, we see it in all, no matter what culture you come from, the conflict between the youth and the older people, right? But our children are a lot smarter than we were because of the internet, because of tech. Yeah. They get information faster, so they can have their perspective form faster. They share information amongst each other like it's crazy, right? And if you're a parent paying attention to your children with this, you got to learn to take a step back. Like that's why I said I had to learn to realize my son is a person, his own perspectives, and he's an individual. And we don't always agree. I want my son to be tough. I want him to play football. He wasn't a sports kid. It was very hard for me. Like, dude, like this makes you into a man. Like, and I had to realize he's going to become a man in his own way, in his own form and fashion. So I encourage parents, like, if your kid doesn't have a view you agree with culturally, you need to, sorry, because all you're going to do is drive them away. So you got a decision to make. How much do you love your child, and how much do you love your culture? If you love your culture more than your child, then I'm and I always take these positions, then you don't really love your child as much as you say you do.
That's true.
Because a lot of our cultures and traditions we want to hold on are coming from some archaic, barbaric ways. If you really, really put, no offense to anybody with religious, but you have, if you really study what you're practicing, some of the stuff is like, it's crazy. I'm like, that's when my first tell me stuff, and I'm like, did you not just read this? Like how can you, like, oh, but yeah, what just happened back then? Like, no, you're justifying. You can't tell me you love humanity and then you justifying an act against humanity. So I look at, like, I'm very, like, I was always with my oldest, like, when he turned 13, I gave him autobiography of Malcolm X. I was like, you know what? I stumbled onto it because my grandparents had a library in their house, and I was just bored one day. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I read it. So I was like, no, this is like a rites of passage. Like, that's what I was saying before we did the interview. I was like, I send my kids books now. Yeah. These are your presents. But I always encourage them to be politically involved of some sort. Being a Black American, and being my grandparents being involved in civil rights, my grandmother, I was always like, I wish my grandmother got a chance to see her first Black president, because they fought so hard. But I also understood that they didn't fight hard for them; they fought hard for me to see it.
That's right.
So that, and I think culturally in America, at least, we've lost that part where, like, this is not about you; it's about your children.
That's true. And
we're seeing in the politics, and like even the gun violence and stuff. You want to talk about guns in schools and train, like, all of that stuff. I mean, like, literally on my block, I couldn't leave my block.
It was a very different era.
In the 80s, early 90s, you didn't get on certain trains because of that. So, like, I don't want to say I don't walk scared, but I'm not scared because I grew up in New York where murders was 1,200 a year.
Yeah,
we're not even hitting like 800. So, like, we're hitting really, really no numbers. So it's like, when I hear my friends, I'm like, come on, man, like, man up. Like, seriously, we used to go, like, certain neighborhoods you just didn't go into. So the culture wars thing, I like certain things I don't agree with, and certain things I have my issues with, but you know what? It's not for me. I got married. I have my kids. What am I worried? Why am I worried about who somebody sleeps with? It really doesn't affect me. So I tell him, so if my son decides he wants to, that's the lifestyle he wants to live. Like, who am I to say anything? And we can't talk civil rights, and we can't talk everybody, can't throw the Constitution and say everybody has a right, and then you're denying people rights. Look, you want to identify whatever you want to identify with, that's fine. Just, my thing is, just don't force me to, that's your right. I have a right to just be like, okay, this, whatever. But, and vice versa. Whatever I feel, I don't have a right to push it on you, just like you. So I think teaching the kids to find that balance, and just, and we see it. It's what, that it's amazing. I see the kids, I watch them on the streets, and I don't try not to judge them when I see them and listen to them. But I see, Like in my neighborhood, when I pass by the local high school, there's Latino, there's Asian, and there's black kids. It used to be predominantly black high school, and I'm seeing them interacting with each other, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. You know, I was always the kid that was cool with everybody. So I was cool with the white kids, the Spanish kids, the Asian kids. So I always knew somebody. So whenever there was conflict, I was caught in the middle because I was like, yo, chill, that's my man, you know, leave him alone. Like, nah. And, you know, but I see the kids doing it on a daily basis. And for them, they're going to be protective of their friends. So you might as well just accept it because you're going to drive your kids away. And you don't want to do that. That's what goes back to what you're saying. Like, they go to that period where they hate you, then they get older and be like, okay, I love you now. Like, because there has to be the reconciliation part from, like, the conflict in views. So I just think the best thing is just to encourage the kids to, you know, if they want to participate in the culture, let them. You know, let them figure out how it means to them. So I think it's important for you to know your roots. Growing up in Black America, that's a big thing for us. It's like, who am I? Where do I come from? You know, so much has been kept from you. It's like now, and then when you get it, you go through the whole angry stage, and a lot of us don't leave that angry stage. So
that's
Well, and the beautiful thing about New York these days is that you can be any kind of anything that you want to be. Like, you want to be, like, I don't know, a queer Puerto Rican skateboarder who like, you know, reads manga, and like there's probably like a group of friends for you who do exactly that. And so I think a lot about how blessed we are, how grateful I am that all kinds of people have their community online and offline these days. And that's something I think about when I think about where we're going to raise our kids is, you know, it's important to me that they have the opportunity to be whatever version of themselves they want to be and find their people.
The cool thing about that, though, is like it's not. You know, I think a lot of us older generations, because we grew up in like isolated, segregated viewpoints, right? The cool thing is like you could be the LGBTQ queer Puerto Rican skateboard that hangs out with the rapper, you know, the rapper friend that dresses like a gangster. Like I see them all converging and hanging out in spots, and it's like, you know, initially it's like mind-boggling. It's like, what the heck's going on here? But when you if you take time to sit and watch them and interact, you see that they're happy amongst each other, and they're very more accepting of each other than how we were. Like, we would ostracize you, you know, if you said some crazy stuff. Like, you know, I'm still guilty of it. I'll be like, pause and all that stuff, but that's just a cultural thing. But, you know, like, I see with the kids, and I'm just like, this is real. It's like, you know, it's real interesting to me. So, you know, but they're going to, you know, that's, especially if they're teenagers and young adults, they're going to push back against you because for them, this is important.
Yeah.
Very good point. I mean, I wonder if my son's then going to grow up thinking he's Caribbean. Yeah, he could. He won't know.
I mean, we're part of Brooklyn. He's gonna grow. I mean, I don't know. Well, you know, if he was growing up in Flatbush,
let him hang out in Flatbush. He's mine.
Well, look, he's not Hasidic, so that leaves Caribbean, right?
Exactly.
You know, if he's going, you know, he's going to one of the restaurants.
Every neighbor, teacher, nanny, everyone is Caribbean. So he probably was thinking of that.
Turn you to the bone.
Yeah,
But you got, you know, but you got Indian roots with that too. So, so you know.
At least he'll be better than what's Tom Hanks' son's name?
Chet.
He'll be more authentic than Chet Hanks, you know. So, what's your favorite sport or hobby? And I already know part of this answer from one person already. And have you tried to push your child into it?
Never had to push him. He came running, you know, to it, which is music.
Is that the dad answer that you're gonna give us?
No. He drew me into it more, I would say. You know, like when he was born. Like I used to play music for him, like, you know, whatever music I was listening to and stuff like that. But two things he figured out. One, he figured out how to use YouTube.
Oh yeah, they'll be figuring that stuff out.
When he was very, very young, he figured out only YouTube. And I let him. Okay, because here's the thing. I get it. You're not supposed to use technology and stuff like that. But I believe that we can look at technology like poetically, you know, not always as like exploitation. So I allowed him. I controlled what kind of content he can see and stuff like that. But music, like especially YouTube music, app. There's no videos, right? It's only purely audio. So I felt like it's not that addictive, but he became like very good at figuring out. And then slowly, by the time he was 2 years old, he started like introducing music to me, like through either his algorithm or he'll select this music and he'll be vibing to it, and I'll be like, whoa, this song is actually very good. Like genres I wouldn't even listen to. He listens to like funk
can you name like 2 or 3 artists that
that he likes. I found out through him.
Yeah.
Remy Wolf,
Yeah, I heard that name.
Magdalena Bay is another one, and the Ginger Root. It's like a multi-instrumentalist.
But yeah, that's literally I agree. That's
and these are all like Gen Z artists.
Yeah, that's really.
And I did
they
not.
sound like Gen
I
Z
was
artists.
like, boy, look, this is Kendrick Lamar. Okay, pay attention to the entire damn album. He found the new Kendrick album. He really liked it. I listened to it once and then I didn't listen to it again. But then he went back and he found certain songs, and I'm like, actually, you know what? Let's give this album a second chance. Stuff like that, okay? So in that way, music is one thing that really connects us.
Yeah,
I
was right about Trini to the bone.
Yeah. He is weird. I tried to introduce him to Californian hip hop. He does not like it.
Oh.
He only likes Sheck West. He's like, must be from the Bronx or from one of the 5 boroughs. He likes Wu-Tang Clan.
All right.
Wu-Tang's for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. He likes Sheck West. He likes only artists from here,
All right.
But okay, he likes like Bobby Shmurda,
Oh.
right? So because he's
I
from
haven't
Brooklyn.
heard Bobby Shmurda song. I don't know.
Anyway, so that's one part of it. The second part of it is acoustic guitar. Is that he figured out that if he comes and brings me the acoustic guitar, I'll play songs for him. And that, like, I used to play a little bit, but then he's now really the one who keeps me practicing every day. He'll come dragging the guitar behind. I'll hear it hit the furniture and the wall, as he brings it down a corridor, and he'll come dragging the acoustic guitar behind him. He'll give it to me, and he'll be like, all right, So then I have to play my entire like repertoire of songs for him until he's happy, and stuff like that. So now I'm like learning new songs because I am bored of playing the same 5-6 songs for him. So see, but that's what I mean. Like, he drives me to these hobbies.
Yeah.
He's the driving force, right? And I am there to like support him. I introduced him to it. I give him all the tools. I put him in the car sometimes, roll down the windows, and we're just like listening to music together. That's just what we're not even going anywhere,
Wow.
That's just, he just likes just chilling, listening to music in different places.
That's
Sometimes
beautiful.
he'll come to my office and he'll be like, no, let's play music here.
Let's
stuff
jam.
like that. He
Let's
loves
jam together.
music. So he's really the one driving it.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Nabeel?
My son has a very limited range of interests. He loves to read. He's been reading for like about 4 or 5 months now. And it's you get him. He has a big library. He'll read any and all books. He also, like, you get him a toy, he'll spend like the first 20 minutes reading everything on the box. He likes music. Like the way kids generally like music. But I've often tried to like get him interested in playing something, or he's not there yet. He's loves trains and knows the subway system around us forward and backward.
I've seen that in. I
He
can testify.
tells me new ways to get to. He's like, that sushi place we go to that we walk to. And I'm like, yeah, what about it? He's like, well, why don't we just take the why don't we just take the 2-3 from school to Barclay Center, and then we can take the B over there, and I was like, yeah, you can. I guess you can go down.
like that.
Like he's.
I seen it. I can testify. I seen
He'll
it in
tell you what
person.
stations are handicap accessible. He's like he is.
That kid, I was like, man, he knows Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He knows more trains than I do. I was like, man.
So
I was
love him
impressed.
the subways. Yeah.
So did that come from you, or did he just pick up the?
He loves patterns and systems. Like he can he's much better at spatial reasoning than I am. I get lost everywhere. He knew from when he was a kid like how to get back home, how to like he's just really good with directions. He likes like how things fit together. So he's like we live near Barclay Center, and that subway station is just so interconnected in their ins and outs and whatever. And so he's like really interested in like what trains stop where, and you've got to take the elevator if you're gonna go there, and then like so yeah, he I think he's just got like a mind for systems.
Did you ever try to get him into your favorite sport or support your favorite team?
He has not been into sports yet. He has a Muhammad Salah jersey, and we all do. His little sister has an old Muhammad Salah, the Egyptian team jersey, not his Liverpool, but yeah, he not that into sports. He just sort of he gets bored really easily watching things on TV. So like unless it's like Sesame Street or Blue's Clues, he just loses interest real quick. So.
So I got 3 of them. So
Yeah.
my oldest, I think I traumatized my oldest. Because I played a lot of sports. I played baseball, softball, football, flag football, and he would be at the games with me. And especially when I played football, you know, I think this is why I think I've traumatized him, because one time I got hurt, and you know he was on the sideline like, you know, there's blood coming out and stuff, and I'm like, I'm good. Like just I'm telling him I'm fine. Like don't worry about it, I'm good. Like, and but I tried to get him into football. One time, you know, put some pads on him and said, "Come on, let's go." And I hit him, and he was like, "Nah, I don't think I want to do this anymore." But you know, I like then this is some mistakes I made. Like I tried to force him. Like he was really good at judo. He was really good at judo, but I think he didn't want to do it anymore. Like it was something. But I was like, I'm the type of father like you got to do it at least once. You can't tell me you don't know if you like it or not if you've never done it. So I'm not trying to hear you on that. So let's go try it. Let's see what happens. But so for my other 2, I learned my lesson from that. Like it's like let me introduce you to things, and if you like it or if I see you take an interest, then we'll support you. But my oldest, he got like the best of me. Like he was like, you know, the music. My family's musical as well. I tried to do music. You know, I was making beats and stuff. So he was around for a lot of that. So he was really into music. Like when he told me he liked Linkin Park, I was like, finally. So I'm glad I got to take him to see the concert, one of the concerts before Chester passed. But so you know, and he, you know, it was like one of those daddy moments. He's sitting there, he's singing all those songs. I'm like, okay, all right, you know. Instruments in my family has always been a thing. So like I try to introduce my kids to the instruments, but they didn't really take to it. But I think because I exposed him to try to get him to so many different things, it also helped him figure out what he wanted to do, which was art. And I didn't realize, it was funny because I didn't know he was into art. It was like his little secret thing. And then one day he gives me a picture he drew of Goku. Wow. And I was like, where'd you get this from? Like, you know, I saw it and I was like, where did this come from? He was like, oh, I drew it. And I said, what you do? You traced it? He was like, no, I drew it. So I was like, okay, do it again. And he did it. And I was like, oh, so I was like, where did you learn how to do this? So I think one of my sisters had got him a book for Christmas, an art book. And that's where he taught himself art. So I was like, okay, you know, my son is an artist. He didn't take to the music part. Art is, you know, that all the creative side runs through my family. So it's like, this is his lane, so I leave him alone. My youngest son, he plays basketball now. He's the one who took to to the sports without any influence from me. He just, you know, one day they moved to Florida, and then, you know, one day he's like he wants to play football. I guess he realized football wasn't for him, but he's tall, so he got into basketball. So that's his thing. You know, it's crazy because he looks like Steph Curry, so everybody's like, he's Steph Curry, so he's trying to be him now. My daughter's into science and math, so like I encourage that. So which I'm so happy about. So I'm going to force her into coding, but I think she'll do well with it. I think she'll do well. Like again, I don't want to say I force them, but I try to really like try this for a little while. See if you don't like it, then we'll stop.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the mistakes. I think my mom, she did that with me and my sister. She would expose it, but I think one of the mistakes my mom made with me in particular was when things got a little rough. She was like, "All right, you don't have to do it anymore." And it took me a long time through my adult life to be like, I never finished what I started because of that. It's like, I think some of it's just a personality. Like if I lose interest, I'm not into it anymore. I won't do it. But on the other side of it was, I never had to finish it because I never had somebody. Sometimes dad has to be like, "Okay, you fell, pick yourself up. Yeah, it hurt, but keep walking. And I didn't really have that. So I thought I was overcompensating by going too far with the sports stuff. So. I apologize to my son for that. I was like, I look back, I was like, I didn't coach you properly, But he would go like, and then he would go to baseball games with me, but he wasn't really into the baseball. So that's kind of like, okay, he's not really a sports kid.
So, do any of your kids support any team that's like a rival of your team, of your sports teams that you like?
My youngest son, yeah. I beat him up for it too. He's a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan.
Yeah, Mets. Oh, yeah.
He's a Golden State. I'm not a big basketball fan. Football, he doesn't really have a team that I know of. He hasn't really taken to a team. He kind of seems like he goes with the front runners.
Wait, so he took this Steph Curry team so seriously that he ended up with Golden State?
Well, you got to remember too. He's 16. So for the past 5-6 years, when he's gotten into basketball, that's the team. That's the team. You know.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that makes sense.
and he's because he's light skin issues. Everybody's like, "Oh, you look like Steph Curry." It's like, all right, whatever, man.
Oh man, this is good. This is good, man. Oh man, thank you all for sharing your time with me. I gotta start wrapping this up. So, let me see. Which question will I go with? How do you find joy in your parent? As a dad, how do you find joy? What gives you your moments of joy? What are the moments of your? Because I was thinking of asking about your favorite dad moment, but you guys have given me some of that already. So, how do you find joy while being a dad, or completing your dad duties, or whichever way you want to go with it?
I think for me, it's the journey, seeing them go. Little kid, like baby. I guess it's like the scientist in me or something. I just like watch and observe them, and like, I would sit there and like put my kids. Oh, just so you know, I used to force all my kids. I raised them all on SpongeBob. They all had to watch SpongeBob. And I forced them. I tried
watching it one day, and I think I fell asleep.
And I forced them. When I get all of them together, I force all of them to watch like the old 80s and 90s movies, because I can't stand somebody be like, I never saw that, and you're a grown adult and you grew up in the 80s and 90s. And I was like, your parents robbed you.
They did rob me.
They robbed you. Well, you guys, you're different. It wasn't in your country at the time, but here in America, you had no excuse not to see E.T. and all those shows, right? But I think the journey of seeing them grow from like an infant to a toddler to a young, what I don't know what comes after toddler, but a child, and then a teenager, and now seeing my son grow into I think that's the most part, because you just see the evolution of them, and if you sit back and enjoy. I tell people all the time, like, you guys enjoy it, man, because it's just like when you start seeing their personalities form, and it's just like, oh, okay, so you're that kind of kid, or you're this kind of person, and then if you have multiple children, seeing how each one of them are completely different than each other. They're similar, but then they're completely different, and it's, they may have grown up in the same environment or been around the same people. It's just interesting to see that part. And then the other joy for me is like, I'm glad that they're their own individuals. They're not trying to be like me. I think that's a big thing. Like, there's things I want to impart on them, but I don't want them to be like me. That's me.
All right. So, how do you find joy?
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, at this age, when it's a lot less complicated, they have so much fun together. nobody will ever love you like a 4-year-old kid. Like it is so pure and so endless. Um, I was hanging out with him before I came out here, and he'd been so excited. We went out and got shoes for my youngest because she's starting to walk, and we were out the house, and he was excited to come home and watch TV. And then I told him that I'd be leaving him for a little while, and I was like, "You want me to set you up in front of the TV?" He's like, "No, I'll watch TV when you leave." And that's real. Like, he gave up TV for me, you know? And so, yeah, no, it's been beautiful. I'm sure it is going to be there's going to be a lot I'm going to have to let go of, but there's so much fun.
Yeah. I just like for me, the joy, you're right, it's everywhere. For me, it like comes in the moments, sometimes when we're not interacting, when we're just hanging out. That happens sometimes where suddenly I realized that we've both just been chilling in the same room, doing our own thing.
No, that's right.
That's
like just now before he when we were hanging out in his room and he didn't want to watch TV.
Yeah.
It's not like he was doing anything with me or talking to me.
No.
He was like playing with his toys.
Yes,
Yeah.
they just didn't want that exactly. Yeah, and he's just there. He's chilling, you know, and you're like doing your own thing, and he's doing his own thing, and it's peaceful, you know, and it's nice. And then I think those are the moments of joy. The reason I was late today to come here is because by instinct, physically, I just drove to his school. And I was parked outside his school, waiting there when you called me. And I'm like, wait, but I'm here. Like, where am I? Where am I? And then I had to like come here. But like physically, like I guess I'm becoming a dad. Like you know, like everything. I wake up, as you said, like 5:30. I wake up. Mechanically, I'm going, and then I'm like, you know, making his little lunchbox. You know, getting him packed for school, like just automatically, you know. And I like it. I like doing his laundry, you know. Sometimes I'm just listening to a podcast early in the morning, doing laundry, and I'm okay, and that's nice. It's very nice. It's very peaceful. I actually like that. He's sleeping. I go and like peek, you know, spy on him, you know.
Yeah.
Just observe him, and then continue just doing for him, you know. I really like it, you know.
It's the persistence of these like chores and daily acts, and like I'm not religious. My father was. I grew up when I was young in a pretty devout Muslim household, and but a big part of Islam, it's the constant acts of devotion, right?
Course,
it's like the praying 5 times a day. It's like
and
these
a lot of
constant reminders,
cleansing.
right? And and but that's sort of that those like daily acts of devotion affirm. They really affirm your, at least for me, my sense of fatherhood. Right? Like, cooking for them, feeding them, that sort of thing. Yeah.
That's why when my son would go, I'd be like, what do I do with myself? It's like that whole routine just gets disrupted. It's like, okay, so what do I do now?
That's how I felt when he first started going to school.
Yeah, it's like, what do I do now?
3K, and I'm like,
yeah, that's true. When
and I came back home and I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, so do I work? Or what do I do?
I know that.
But that also helped me realize you also have to take time for yourself and stick, because you give so much, like you said, devotion. You give so much to the process of raising your children and to your family that sometimes when they're not, like, especially as they get older and they start doing their own thing, I think it's more important for you to find a hobby or find something for you so that you don't have that space or that gap, because it is like this was. He's 24. This was like 14, 15. I still remember like sitting in the car and be like, what do I do now? So, and it took me weeks. No, actually it took me months to get used to that. So, and that's when I realized, okay, I got to start planning out my weekend. So as soon as he's gone, I'm like, yeah, I'm free. Let's go. You know, meeting up with my friends or I'm going someplace. So, but yeah.
All right. So I think that's a good place to bring it to an end. Yeah. Final question will be, what would you like to leave the audience with? Well, especially a message to the aspiring dads, anyone struggling with fatherhood, anyone who's out there in the game, dreaming of becoming a. I have a cousin who, he always like, man, I can't wait to become a dad. I can't wait to. I'm like, bro, I don't know why you're in a rush. You're just like
Take your
20,
time.
25. Like,
Don't rush.
Like, yeah, calm down, man. Calm down. But he's got a good head on his shoulders. But it just feels funny. Since he was 22? He always kept saying that, I can't wait to become a dad, man. I look at you, man. I'm like, I'm glad you look at me, but there's other things you should aspire to in life. That feels weird to me hearing you say you can't wait to become a dad. So yeah, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Can I go? Yeah, for me, it's like, I think I've already said this on this podcast once before, but the day before he passed away, my father-in-law, I was talking to him, and on the phone, and I was telling him, I was like, hey, listen, like, my own father just had passed away a few months before that. And I'm like, hey, and here I am all alone with your daughter in New York City. She's pregnant. I'm going to be a dad, and I don't have a role model. It'll be nice to have a role model somewhere nearby, and I'm glad I have you, I told him. And he's like, you know what? You never are. This is so like scary. He's like, oh, you never know how long you'll actually have someone like that. And role models are really overrated anyway. This was literally 12 hours before he passed away. And then he's like, role models are very overrated. The best thing that you can do is listen to your instincts. When it comes to being a father, even when I know your child is not born yet, but the very fact that you're thinking about all these things, even your cousin is already a father, because he's thinking about it. I respect your cousin in that way.
I respect him too.
Yes, he's already a father. He already is. He just needs to listen to his instinct. And I'm sure he'll do well. And that's what my father-in-law told me. He just said, listen to your instinct. You'll figure it out. Like a lot of times we think about like sources of knowledge and role models and what we've learned and stuff like that. But there is a lot to be learned by actually listening to ourselves, our own voice. Like we have all these voices in our head, dad's voice or like society's voice, so many voices. And so sometimes we just have to find our own voice and listen to what that is saying.
Mr. Corey.
One, don't put pressure on yourself. Like you said, trust your instincts. Enjoy the ride because it's going to be a ride. And enjoy it. Just enjoy the moments that you have with your children. Me personally, I think a lot of parents make the mistake of not, even when they're young, communicating with their children. Your children understand and see more than you think they do. Case in point, I was on the phone talking to somebody. My son is over in the room playing. I said something, and he corrected me. And I was like, are you listening to my conversation? You know what I'm saying? Because he was so engrossed in his toys, I didn't think anything about it. I'm like, he's not paying me any mind. So they're watching and listening, and they understand more than you think they do. They may not be able to communicate it well. So one of the things I've learned to do was when my son was like 17, we went out to dinner, and I sat down with him, and I asked him like, what did I do wrong? And we had a conversation. And I apologized, and I laid myself out there and was like, listen, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it's not an excuse, but I think being open and understanding your children and being open and communicating with them is going to be really important, in growing your relationship with them. So don't put pressure on yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be the perfect dad. There's no such thing. And just enjoy it and communicate with your kids, create an environment where they feel comfortable and you can communicate with them. Don't be headstrong. If you make a mistake, admit you made the mistake, learn from it, fix it. Don't keep trying to force it.
Thank you. Nabeel?
Yeah, I think I've I mean, to Ashwin's point, you talk about listening to your gut, and I'd say also, listen to your kid, right? And
Yeah.
I've they kind of come with an instruction manual, like when they're like, they don't, I don't, and again, I'm a parent of young kids. What do I know? But like, I mean, they, when they're really young, they tell you what they want. They're very loud about it, and I'm able to have, some real conversations with my kid, and he tells me what he needs, and he's an introverted kid, and sometimes he acts out, and we've taught him when he needs his space, he says he needs lathe time, and when he needs lathe time, we all leave the room, and he has his lathe time, and he's got his like meditation soundtrack that he listens to, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it's which is just a wonderful thing, and we've equipped him, we've empowered him. You've got to give him the words, the vocabulary to figure out what he wants to, what he's
Right.
asking for. But I mean, ultimately, I really feel like already at this age, I can respect him enough to tell me what he needs, and we can figure it out together. And I think every parent, aspiring parent, should look forward to the opportunity to have their kid tell them what they need.
I agree. Yeah.
Shukran there. And what I'll wrap up with is, my nephew, my first nephew, he's technically my first son because I didn't understand what was happening there. I think how old is he? The age gap's like, I'm bad with math, but let me see, 8, 12.
You were in the Navy.
Yeah, I was in the Navy. No, Navy is far better than Marines, man. Don't bring that up. And Army. He's 14 years younger than I am, and
Okay.
I was the male figure in his life growing up. So there's a huge attachment because his dad was never around. So, but I wasn't fair to him. I haven't been fair to him for some time. There have been some little things I've been mad with him. But I guess I wasn't even consciously aware that I was rubbing off as being dismissive. Well, one or two mistakes that in the past I should have let go of it. But it felt like, but I was really proud of him to have corrected me, reached out to me in a text message like, Uncle, this is, it feels like, you're not listening to me, and it's like you just, I stepped up and you still don't acknowledge and all that. So at first I was trying to yell at him, and then it was like, okay, but I've listened to you yelling at me, but may I get the opportunity to speak now? I was like, you know what? Why am I talking to him like he's still 12?
That's hard, man. It's
So
hard.
I listened to him and I was like, I apologize. I have to. Yeah, I gotta own this. I own it, and I know this is not Uncle's Day, but this is Father's Day, and I consider him like a son. So it's part of the journey of being a dad. You have to take that. I try to apologize to my daughter too. When you mess up, when I mess up, I admit that I messed up. It's not something that I grew up with. I didn't have any family member, or all my siblings are older than me. None of them admitted that they were wrong. It's something that still causes clashes to this day. And it's one thing that I told myself when I became a parent that I would not be doing to my child, that I will, when I'm wrong, and I will apologize. So just the fact that this happened a few days ago and I was able to apologize to my nephew, and I was like, yeah, you stepped up, and I was really proud of you for stepping up. I was really, really proud of you, and I hope that you do this not just to me, that for everything in life, you're able to step up, and for what's yours, you're able to step up, because we don't understand how this impacts the young ones. When people keep pushing them down, they start staying in a shell, and other people oppress them. So I was really happy for him. And last thing I would say is self-care. Dads deserve self-care. Get your self-care. Treat yourself. If it's massages, I'm not saying go do something negative. That's on you. Get self-care. If it's golf, I don't know how to play golf. I don't care about it. But whatever your self-care is, it's movies. Like me, I watch all the Marvel. I watch everything Disney Plus. Marvel. That's part of my self-care. Or if it's expensive travel, I deserve it too. If you want to buy a ticket for me, reach out to me. But yeah. So thank you all for coming again. Do you have anything you'd like to plug in? Please feel free to do that. Anybody?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
Yeah,
Happy
Father's
Father's
Day.
Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day. And then nobody trying to come claim it this time. If you want to claim it, go. You know what? Go to my merch store.
Buy the merch and burn it. You can burn it.
All right. 5-star reviews. Keep the love coming in. Thank you for the privilege of your company. I'll see you in next week's episode. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, please give a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. You can follow the show on all social media platforms. Visit the White Label American website for links for donations, episodes, feedback, guests, merch, and newsletter. Don't forget to download the free White Label American app on the Google Play Store and Apple coming soon. Thank you for the privilege of your company.